Hi, my name is Rajesh Thakur. In my earlier video, I had informed conceptual clarity as one of the reasons why students do not score well in accounts. Well, what is this conceptual clarity is? In order to understand it, I have framed out stepwise processes to understand what is this and how we can use it. So let's begin. Here are the 5 steps which I was talking about concepts clarity. The first step is what elements or components are involved in a financial transaction. So we need to look at the different elements or components a financial transaction is made of. Then we need to check under which accounting heads these elements or components lie. Over here I am referring to the accounting heads which are asset, liability, capital, revenue, expense or loss. Now we need to understand about what their mean is. So we need to understand the 5 accounting terms which I just mentioned: asset, liability, capital, expense or loss, revenue and gain. So once we understand their definition, we could able to analyze a financial transaction and see the elements or components a financial transaction is made of, under which category of these 5 heads these elements comes. So once we are able to do that categorization, then we need to know what are the accounting rules related to these accounting heads. So once we know about the rules of the accounting of these accounting head, then we need to check the elements or the components involved in a financial transaction, whether that is increasing or decreasing. So, and with the help of when analyze these in whether the element is increasing or decreasing, we try to correlate it and refer to the accounting rules, and based on that we pass the entry. In order to understand it more easily, let's take an example of a financial transaction and understand it. Here the financial transaction is, let's say, rent paid in cash. Now the first step, I'm just trying to go in that stepwise manner to analyze this financial transaction so that it will be easier for you to understand and correlate what actually this is all about and how to proceed. So let's start. So the financial transaction is rent paid in cash. Now we need to first analyze what are the elements this financial transaction is made of. So as the financial transaction says rent paid in cash, so we see there are 2 elements which are involved in it. One is rent, the other is cash. Now, as we know the definition of the 5 accounting terms or the 5 accounting head I have explained in the previous slide, we need to categorize under which accounting head these elements come. So once we able to categorize them, then we need to go for the accounting rules. So let's categorize. So rent being an expense that is incurred by a business to generate revenue, it's a definition of expense. Expense is anything, it's actually a cost that a business incurred to generate revenue. So rent is also an expense. So the first categorization of our element rent is expense. The second element which is involved in this financial transaction is cash. Now cash is categorized under the head asset. Why we are categorizing cash under asset? Because definition of the asset is anything which is owned and controlled by a business and that can be converted into cash is known as asset. So this is already in the form of cash. So the cash is an asset. Now we have analyzed and categorized our elements into accounting head. So what did we do? We first checked what are the elements, that is rent and cash. Then we categorize under which head they come. Rent comes under expense head, cash comes under asset head. Now we need to see whether they are increasing or decreasing. So we see in the fourth step that rent is increasing because every month a business has to incur or pay the rent. So rent is increasing. The other component of this financial transaction is cash. Now what this cash is doing, whether it is increasing or decreasing, being cash is paid out of the business, out from the business, so it's decreasing. So cash is decreasing. Now we need to check the accounting rule with respect to expense and asset, seeing what is the rule for increasing and what is the rule for decreasing. So let's analyze. Expense account is increase on a debit side and decrease on a credit side. Our expense is in the name of rent. So, and rent is increasing. So our what we're gonna do for the entry? Rent account debit. Now let's see the other component, which is cash. So cash is decreasing and asset is increase on the debit side and decrease on the credit side. Now my asset, which is in the form of cash in this transaction, is decreasing. So we'll credit the cash. In accounting entry, anything which we need to write for the credit, then we write it with respect to and then the elements name of the financial transaction. So here the name of the elements in this financial transaction which is decreasing, or we need to credit that is cash. So we write to cash. So what entry we could able to form? Rent account debit to cash. Now you can see how easy this is. Based on this understanding, we can pass entry with respect to any financial transaction. So this is conceptual clarity, or the clarity of the concepts I hope this gets clear to you. Now we look at what have we learned by understanding this process. So we'll see you have learned how to analyze a transaction. What are the accounting definition? Let's say what I explained is expense and asset, and then we see how to correlate and what are the accounting rules related to that, and based on that we pass the entry. अगर अपनी books में देखोगे, a few of your chapters in your starting chapters of your books are all theory, and students कई बार क्या करते हैं कि they don't try to understand the definition properly, but they try to mug it up. तो याद इस हिसाब से करते हैं कि बस लिख देना है, because बुक्स में इस हिसाब से है कि पहले बहुत सारी अकाउंटिंग टर्म्स हैं, अकाउंटिंग स्टैंडर्ड्स हैं, एंड देन द प्रैक्टिकल एस्पेक्ट्स कम. सो बाय द टाइम द स्टूडेंट रीच टू दैट प्रैक्टिकल क्वेश्चन, दे डोंट अंडरस्टैंड हाउ टू कोरिलेट इट. सो माय एम्फेसिस ऑफ टीचिंग इन दिस वे इज टू एस्टैब्लिश अ लिंक between theory and the practical, so that student can understand it well. इससे फायदा ये रहता है कि स्टूडेंट्स का इंटरेस्ट बना रहता है कि वो क्या कर रहे हैं और उनको समझने में, एंड दे अंडरस्टैंड इट वेरी वेल. ओवर एंड अबव, it provides a confidence in them that they can analyze a transaction, they can break it down, they can see under which head. So 2-3 chapters of your books you are covering under one roof with simple steps. So if you keep on doing this way, and instead of mugging up the accounting accounting terms definition, but try to understand them, then it will be more easier for you to apply in a practical aspects. So I hope all these things will help you out and chart out how you need to proceed further to go through in your study in the next chapters. I have also shared a link of a Google form where I have mentioned where you can mention your comments if you like, or any other topic you want me to cover. So please do mention so that I can share that with you, and hope all this video is helpful to you. Thank you so much.